Kelsey, ain't nothing but a rock hound dog, hey?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah. Thanks for joining me on my podcast. Third episode of Twisted Vibrations, Travelers of the Astral and Physical Realm.
I am happy to be here.
Thank you so
And I'm
much.
hoping I can be a good guest for you.
Oh, no, of course. I've seen your stuff on TikTok. I came across it because, like, rock hounding, something that I'm interested in, but I've never really had a great deal of getting into. Um,
hmm
it's just, I think, I don't know, growing up in a city wasn't a big chance for me, but obviously you got to get out and you got to travel a lot for that. And one thing I kind of like drawn to your account was that you've seen so many videos. You've been around the States, have you? You've been to many places. You seem to know every mineral of every state in the, you know?
Well, it's not that I've traveled a lot, but there is this great resource. It's a network of rock hounds where you can look at a map, search at any place that you want, and you can see pins where certain minerals have been found.
Right.
And I mean, anyone can look at that. I rock hound within my state and within a few other states, but
So which
most of
state is that?
what
Sorry.
was that?
Which state is that you're in?
I am in Illinois, which
Illinois.
isn't the best state for rock hounding, but we do have some extra beautiful fluorite coming out of Illinois.
Oh, nice. I do like fluorite. That's a pretty soft one though, isn't it? Well, so do you get out much for digging up the
I-
rocks?
Yes, I do, as long as it's not freezing cold, because here lately, a lot of my rock hounding is in creeks and cold in water. Don't not my kind of thing.
Yeah. So what's the process into going rock hounding? Like, do you need to know geologically the area? Do you need to survey it before you go into it, or you just kind of word of mouth?
Well, for me, I will check any place once, as long as you're not living in like a concrete jungle, you should be able to find crystals. You
Mm,
know, I right now I rock hound in creeks, but anywhere where there's a lot of rock content, you're going to be able to find crystals and minerals. And quartz is found worldwide.
mm.
So that is something that everyone can go out hunting for.
Yeah, well, you got a lot of different variations of crystals that come from quartz, don't you? So
Yes.
I always thought like your jaspers were a form of all quartz, but I think I saw a video of yours where you were explaining they were chalcedony.
Yeah, and chalcedony or chalcedony, however you want to pronounce it, is a form of quartz. So you are correct.
Right, that really casts big umbrellas because I've always found like I've always kind of said to people like if you've got a mystery stone, if you've got something, it's probably a jasper or an agate, and
Yeah.
then you could probably say it's a chalcedony, and then you could say it's probably a quartz of some sort because what most minerals they usually start off as quartz, don't they? Before
Yes.
they
And
yeah.
you wouldn't be wrong calling it that. So
Yeah, that's it. That's it. I get a lot of people trying to identify crystals and looking at them, but a lot of the crystals I handle are like these polished captions, and they can
same.
be very different from the raw stuff that you pull out of the ground. Hey,
Yes.
yeah,
Absolutely. The same thing for me. And I try to be as helpful as I can, but a lot of it's like a lot of what I'm asked to identify is like river rock and things like that. And without having it in your hand and, knowing the hardness of it and all of that, it's really hard to do, but I do try to help when I can.
how do you find out the hardness of a stone?
Well, there is this awesome system called the Mohs hardness scale, and it ranks the hardness of each minerals. A mineral like fluorite is going to be lower on the scale. I think it's a 4.
Yeah, it's a
And then a
four.
mineral like quartz and agate, they're going to be a 7. And the Mohs hardness scale, you can take common objects like a knife, a nail, and you can scratch. If it can scratch the object, it can really help you determine what the hardness of a mineral is. And you can, just by searching on the internet, the hardness, the color, the shape is really going to help get your identification when you've got a mineral that kind of looks like multiple minerals. It's very helpful.
Yeah, I am familiar with the Mohs hardness scale, but more the techniques in figuring out the hardness. So I guess for each different level. You talk about like a fingernail, and I don't know, I guess if you got a piece of quartz, what they don't scratch easy though, the quartzes. So I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot, I find a lot of misinformation out there, particularly around TikTok, people talking about, they're very familiar with quartz and they talk about, you know, if it scratches, it's not a real crystal. And then I'm immediately like, no, 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 no. You're
Right.
missing out on so many. We've got calcite, we've got fluorites and stuff like that, which are really, really soft. So yeah.
And when it comes to every mineral, they can come looking so different. So that makes it even harder to figure out what stuff it is.
Yeah. Do you cut your stones at all? Do you polish or do you tumble them?
I do rock tumble and I do want to get into lapidary work eventually, but it's, getting the money for the equipment because the equipment is not cheap.
How many rock
But I
tumblers
do
have you
rock
got
tumble.
going at the moment?
Just one, but I only started this within probably the last 7 or 8 months, but I will be soon adding another.
Yeah, yeah, because
Once you get started, it's so hard to stop.
yeah, because like one, like what is it, like tumbling one rock, they can take like 4 weeks or something, one batch of rocks or something.
Yeah, sometimes I let mine go over the longest I've ever went is about a month and a half. But the great thing about rock tumbling is, not all rocks are what they seem, and something like a rock tumbler or a rock saw can just reveal this beauty that's within. That's one important thing to remember when you're rock hounding. It may appear ugly, but it could have all this beauty just hiding on the inside.
What was your biggest surprise that you had when you first tumbled a stone? Like which one really blew you away?
When I first stuck crazy lace agate into a rock tumbler and saw what a rock tumbler could bring out of those, I was hooked before, but after that, I was really
Yeah.
hooked.
Do you want to explain to anyone that might not know what rock tumbling is? Can you explain the process?
Sure. A rock tumbler, you have 4 stages of grit and polish, and each stage, the coarseness of the polish or the grit just goes down. And over time, by the fourth stage is your polish, and it is going to make your rock sparkle. It's going to take a really seemingly ugly rock and turn it into anything, something you can use for jewelry or a collection. But
You
it
get
can be a very slow process, but it's a very rewarding process.
you get like these little barrels or something, don't you? Because I don't have my own rock tumblers. I've never done it myself, but you get these little barrels and you like scoop in, I don't know, you scoop in sand or something, don't you?
Yeah, and there's actually multiple kinds of rock tumblers. One's a vibratory rock tumbler, and it's going to shake. And they're actually more gentle, and I kind of want to, explore those. But the one I have is a rotary rock tumbler, and it just spins, and the rocks hitting together, and then the grit, it slowly just breaks down the edges and any pits that might be in the rock to get a really smooth rock.
Mm. Yeah, I have this big chunk of carnelian which I found when I was in the river in the northern rivers of New South Wales. I found this big chunk of carnelian, and it's got all these divots and everything in it. I always wanted to get them out, but I've always been advised otherwise from my partner to say, no, you just got to leave it. You just got to leave it raw because that raw beauty in it. So
Yeah.
how did you get into the rock hounding to begin with? You said it was 7 months ago. Like,
Oh, well, I got into rock hounding as a child. Me and my mother would rock hound every summer. But, once I became an adult and had access to my own money, then I started buying minerals. So my research got really serious in my 20s, my early 20s. But I've been rock hounding since I was a kid. It's always been something I've loved. And when I got older, it really became a passion once I started, researching everything and learning about it and learning to identify it and stuff.
yeah, right. So, and how does that, if you don't mind me asking, does that tie into any kind of spiritual practices you do or any spiritual lessons you've learned along the way or?
Well, I have the best way to say this is I have had religious restrictions most of my life. but I had come to a point where I was unhappy, and I was unhappy for so long that I decided that I was going to go beyond those restrictions to try to help myself feel better. It was something I wasn't going to do in the past because of fears that had been instilled in me as a child.
The fear of God.
But once I was able to get past those fears and explore my spirituality, I started feeling so much better. And I started questioning everything else I was taught.
That's just the way it goes. Once you get on the spiritual path, you just start questioning everything. So would I be assuming, right, you came from a fairly Christian upbringing then?
Yeah,
What kind
yes.
of parallels have you drawn from like the Christian faith, having been brought up in a strong Christian upbringing, to finding your own truth in the spiritual path? What kind of parallels have you drawn between the teachings of the church and your own spiritual practice? What is something that really, is there anything that does kind of line up?
Yeah, I still feel like there is a higher power. I am still in an area of my life. I can't believe I'm saying this in my 30s. I am still, now that I've started to explore my spirituality, I still have not figured everything out. It'll be interesting to see where I am in a year, because the growth since I began this journey has been amazing, but there is no telling where I'm going to end up.
Yeah.
It's a big
I,
question mark.
it's a constant process though. I mean, myself, like, it's only been 2 years for myself on this spiritual path, but
Mm-hmm.
that growth is intense, and it's, you never stop learning, you never stop growing for it, and there's always something new. I always find the universe is going to throw something new at you that's just like, it likes to sprinkle a bit of magic on you just to keep your faith alive a little bit and keep working
Yeah.
towards it. Did you have any kind of like aha moments that really were kind of like, oh, this is real?
Well, I don't know if I should talk about them.
No, I mean,
Or my spirit about my newfound spirituality. I thought you were okay. Yes, there's been several. I make videos on TikTok a lot, and you can really see when I started exploring crystal healing and when it started being effective. If you watch over my videos, you can see the light in my eyes come alive. You can see my confidence and happiness really start to shine. But at the beginning,
yeah,
it just wasn't there.
yeah.
And, being able to look back on those videos and see how much I've grown since I began this journey is a testament. And it, makes me want to keep going even more. It's proof.
So your your TikTok account is almost like it's almost like a videography of your growth as an individual.
Absolutely. And I love seeing it.
So is that like so which was like which crystal do you reckon it was that was really most influential, that really kind of kicked everything off? Or, did you feel something somewhere? I don't know.
Well, I think Jasper probably, or agate. I can get carried away with anxiety and like obsessing over something that's stressful in my life. And sometimes that anxiety can get so bad you feel like you're going to float away. And when I have Jasper or agate, everything's good with the world.
'Cause it's a grounding stone, of course.
Yes.
And that's and I think that's one of the biggest questions I get, and I wouldn't be surprised if you get that on your account too. Like, what's a good stone for anxiety and depression? I find that's a really big thing that's happening right now. Geez, I don't know where to start. I don't know what to start blaming. Why it seems like this mental health thing kind of goes around at the moment. It's so very strong, but when
Well, I think it's starting to become, something that is okay to talk about. So it's becoming more apparent how many people are struggling with it, because for a long time, mental health wasn't something that, a lot of people openly talked about. And, the last couple years, things like that have really started to change.
Mm. Did you try many other techniques before working with crystals?
Oh, absolutely. I've tried to dive into religion. I have tried counseling. I years ago tried medication, and none of that ever worked for me. And I'm not saying someone shouldn't seek help if they need help.
Sure.
It just was not right for my path. It did not help me. And I went against my religion to find something that was going to help me. It was like a last resort, and I'm just so glad that I was brave enough to give it a try. And you know
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a big thing for me as well, getting into the crystal healing myself. Um, it was like, I would say probably 2 years ago, I would have been one of those people to say this is just some new age nonsense, hippy dippy stuff. But when I did meet my partner for the first time, there was some amazing things that happened when we started working with crystals. There were amazing intentions that we set, and things like making lightning strike a particular location at a very specific point in time, bringing rain to an area that shouldn't be seeing rain at that kind time of year. These are the kind of things that I just feel like they just get sprinkled on you sometimes. And it's just like, there's no way you can't deny this when it starts happening to you. So,
well, and I remember, back when Facebook was really popular, are a lot of rock and mineral groups that I am a member in, and a lot of them do not allow metaphysical talk.
oh,
And I remember, seeing people post about it, and comments saying, this is going to get deleted. This isn't allowed here. And I was never, judgmental of people like that, but I was kind of one of those people that looked like, you know, that doesn't work. That's not real. And I was a non-believer
yeah.
2 years ago. And then here I am openly talking about it on my TikTok. Anyone who knows me knows I have collected rocks and crystals for a really, really long time. And, I was not one of those people not long ago. And here I am, a believer, absolutely a believer now.
So why do you think the rock hounding communities are so against the idea of the metaphysical properties?
Well, I think a lot of those groups are science based.
All right, right. Yeah. Okay. They don't want to. It's all. That's all. Yeah. I kind of. I feel that with the science is amazing. Don't get me wrong, because it's given us so much insight into the physical world that we're in, how to interpret the physical world. But I guess when it comes to the metaphysical world, it's like there's so many things in the metaphysical that are undeniably real. And like one thing I'll kind of use for example is let's talk about our imagination. I say let's imagine a cat, for example. You can imagine that cat. The cat is there. The cat is very real in your mind, but you can't weigh it. You can't measure it, but it's there. And
Yeah.
like I feel like it's slowly over time, slowly we're getting there where there are some people that are more willing to accept this and try and bring science into it as well. Are you familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza by any chance?
I'm not.
Dr. Joe Dispenza is this amazing, I'd say life-changing guy. Um, this isn't a paid promotion. He's he's a neuroscientist, and he
Uh-huh.
understands quantum mechanics, and he also does meditation as well. And he brings in a lot of practices from like ancient practices from around the world, and he brings in how the brain actually interprets it, and he knows how to measure it properly. And he will start talking about being in the energy of love and gratitude and forgiveness and all these things, and literally healing your body over incurable diseases, for example. He's almost like this modern day miracle worker, almost like
Mhm.
almost like those faith healers that you see, but he's very much uh science based and almost irrefutable. Like I'll have to send you some links after this chat as well.
You
For
froze there for a minute.
Oh, okay. I'll have to send you some links to this guy. Oh, your internet is unstable. Let's see how that goes. Frozen. Vinny's 15.
Goes again.
Yeah, okay, we're back. And we're back.
I don't know if it's on my end or yours.
No, I don't know. I think it might be my end. It's a bit weird. It's a bit weird here. So if anyone was out there that wanted to get into rock hounding, what do they first do? Like, what do you reckon the first way to kind of get into that would be?
Well, I know that these Facebook groups do not like metaphysical talk.
Okay.
Well, not all of them, but some of them. But they are an excellent resource, and you're not going to, go in there and have problems. It's just not something that's talked about in those groups.
Right.
That's going to be a great resource for learning to identify. Those Facebook groups are really what got me going. But there is a website called mindat.org, and you can search, I believe, any country. Like, for instance, I searched Australia earlier, and I could see exact pin locations where they found malachite. So you can look at that pin and then go hounding in that area. If you're in the US, gatorgirlrocks.com is going to tell you, they'll tell you what minerals can be, not all of them, but they list a couple minerals that can be found in your state. And then at the very bottom of their page, they're going to list sites that you can go and dig for the day for a small fee, And beside that, just going out in nature and starting to get the hang of how to tell where it's going to be a good spot or not. I hound in creeks right down the road from my house, and I found fluoride, I found calcite, I found quartz, geodes, fossils, and there's so much more. Anyone who wants to rock hound will be able to rock hound. Like I said, unless you're living in a concrete jungle, you can rock hound.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, like living in a concrete jungle. In the town I'm in here in Edisaida, in Portugal, there's a lot of calcite around here. And there's some of these buildings on the outside building up like these retaining walls. They just have these loose piles of rocks. And in these loose piles of rocks, I've seen rocks that big of just calcite chunks. And I'm just like,
and that's got to be so hard for you to have to leave them since you can't carry them everywhere with you. So
I probably could. I'd just be walking home from the grocery store just carrying this big rock. And I'm like, what do I do with this? I'm like in a small studio apartment. I've got nowhere to put this rock. But
surface finds are a great way to start. You don't have to start, digging. A lot of my finds have been surface finds. So that, that makes perfect sense.
Because the rocks are just everywhere. Like pretty much any river you reckon you just step into and that's just where they are.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. And like I said, some of them aren't what they seem.
Yeah. I had one experience going rock hounding in Australia in a place called Hart's Range. I don't know if you're familiar with the name of that place, but if you ever go to Australia, you have to go there. That's a place where you find lots of this garnet. And this place was absolutely amazing. I mean, there's all these holes everywhere where people have been digging, but the surface of the ground, there were garnet that big, just these tiny bits. It would almost look like, when you smash a car window and all the little bits come off. The entire landscape of this desert was just little pieces of garnet just shining in the sunlight, like these crimson little reflections everywhere on the grounds.
And there's few things that I have done in the world that gives me that much excitement, that gives me that much exhilaration, is finding my own crystals. So I can imagine how excited you were in that moment.
Yeah. I mean, considering I haven't really had much of a chance. And I mean, I didn't know about the websites, but I also kind of found like, particularly if you're dealing with something like garnet, which can be a bit more expensive, the people that know where it is don't necessarily want to tell you where it is.
Right.
Because there is a bit of money in that too. So it can be a little bit tricky getting into that and trying to find, particularly some of your more fancy stuff,
Well, and with the Mindat website, it will show you pins where the mineral has been found, but then you have to use other websites to locate, public land in that area, because just because that, area is pinned does not mean that you can go walking around on it.
Right. It also helps to know where the veins are as well, like where, like what kind of rock formations. Again, this is very rudimentary knowledge that I have, but like also understanding the landscape, how the land has moved over the millennia, like what
Yes.
might be coming to the surface and where to dig. Otherwise, I mean, once upon a time I was digging for sapphires in a town in Australia, literally called Sapphire. And I was digging all day. And I think I found one tiny piece that big. It wasn't even that impressive. So
Hmm.
yeah. Have
Yeah,
have you
and
got
you
any
never
plan?
know what you're going to find because here
Yeah.
in Illinois, we don't have a lot of lakes or anything, but the fossils are so plentiful. Like, it's like, where did these come from? I'm sure at some point, there was a huge lake in Illinois or we were underwater. I don't know. I mean, it's been
What what
billions of
fossils?
years ago, but it's quite amazing.
What fossils are they?
Horn coral, honeycomb coral, crinoid stems, things like that, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
seabed type fossils for sure.
So Illinois was underwater several thousands or millions of years ago.
I have not researched, fossils isn't something I've really gotten into much, but
Yeah,
that would be I would say, yeah, how else would they have gotten here,
yeah.
So that would be my guess.
Do you have any plans to get out and go rock hounding anywhere in America or around the world?
Well, I have been dying to get up near the Great Lakes again for some Lake Superior agate. Washington is a really good state to rockhound in, so that will definitely be on my bucket list. And once you get near Arizona, Utah, there's some great rockhounding there too. So, not only that, but they have some amazing gym shows. Some of the biggest gym shows in the world are held in those states. So that's definitely going to be at the top of the list of places for me to visit.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to a couple of gem shows when I was in Australia, and I think it's really important. I think for people like us that are getting into the crystal healing side of things, because I feel there's this massive, massive misconception that every crystal you're going to get your hands on has been dug up by some child in a developing country somewhere. And when you go to these places and you see all these enthusiasts that have been digging up the stones and polishing themselves, it's like, this just isn't the case.
Yeah, it's really hard, even if someone says that their crystals have been ethically mined, if they're coming from another country, they've been in so many hands by the time it reaches you in the US, it's going to be really hard are they really ethically mined too? So if you can go out and dig them yourself, of course, that's going to be the very best. And I know so many people inside the US that do.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anywhere else in the world you want to go digging for crystals?
Well, Mexico has a lot of awesome minerals coming out of it, and I would love to go to Mexico.
Well, I'm going to Mexico in like a month and a half. What's in Mexico?
You can find fire opal and, crazy lace agate is my absolute favorite to tumble, and it comes out of Mexico. Mexico has just about everything.
Yeah, I'm really hoping for something, going for some fossicking in Mexico. We'll be making our way down south into Brazil and Argentina and all these other places as well. So,
Well, there was a TikToker that I introduced to rock hounding, and I'm telling you, like the first time she went out, she found some rocks and she came back and tagged me in the video, and my jaw about hit the floor because she brought back this beautiful Mexican calcite. It was yellow, orange, and red, beautiful banding. She's like, "What is this?"
like literally,
good job.
Big, like
yes, like several. I said, "Good job."
Man,
yeah, you did good.
That'd be awesome. I was in the Himalayas like a year ago, and I didn't find much, but there were some double terminated clear quartz points that we found on the track. I found the tiniest one. It was the size of the grain of rice. God knows how I managed to see it. But also mica, but it's like some really pure mica, not Not like just those little bits that are lost in it. We got these like plates of meat, like big chunks of it. And so, you know, and they have like blue kyanite hanging around there as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
My dog's starting to squeak at me.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, I think I'm gonna finish up there, but thanks heaps for talking about the about rock hounding. Is do you wanna let people know about your socials or anything that people can find you on?
You can find me on Instagram and on TikTok at kdarn89. And thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on this podcast.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for listening to the Twisted Vibrations podcast. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and have a chat down in the comments down below and leave any suggestions for what topics you might want to hear in the future. See you next time.